Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am absolutely buzzing today. Our guest is a global icon, a five-time NBA champion, an Oscar winner, and the man who defined Mamba Mentality. For those who may, somehow, not know who are you?
I'm Kobe Bryant. Most people know me from my 20 years with the Lakers, but I like to think of myself as an obsessive learner, someone who just wanted to see how far he could push the limits of his own potential.
The legend himself. Let's go back to the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born on August 23, 1978, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philly is where the roots are, though my journey took me all over the map pretty early on.
And what was your given name at birth? Is there a story behind it?
My full name is Kobe Bean Bryant. My parents, Joe and Pamela, actually named me after that famous Japanese beef, Kobe steak. They saw it on a menu and liked the sound of it, and Bean comes from my dad's nickname Jelly Bean from back when he was playing in the league.
That is a classic. So your dad was playing pro ball, and eventually the family moves. What was your hometown like growing up?
Well, it's a bit of a split story. I spent my early years in Philly, but when I was 6, we moved to Italy so my dad could keep playing. Italy was incredible. It was where I learned to appreciate different cultures and languages. I grew up speaking fluent Italian, but when I moved back to Philly at 13, it was a bit of a culture shock. I went from soccer fields and Italian villas to the tough, competitive courts of Lower Merion.
What was your family life like with all those moves?
We were very close. I'm the youngest of 3 with 2 older sisters, Sharia and Shea. Being the baby of the family and moving around so much meant we really leaned on each other. My parents were my biggest supporters, always encouraging me to pursue whatever I was passionate about.
What kind of kid were you? Were you always this focused?
I was an observer, I was quiet, but my mind was always racing. When we were in Italy, I was the kid who would watch videotapes of NBA games my grandpa would mail me from the States. I'd watch them over and over until the tape wore out, just trying to deconstruct the moves.
Did you have any big fears growing up?
You know, as a kid, your fears are simple, failure, or maybe not fitting in after moving back to the US. But my biggest fear was probably just the idea of not being the best I could be. I hated the thought of leaving potential on the table.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
It was always basketball. From the moment I could hold a ball, I dreamed of playing for the Lakers and winning championships. I used to imagine the crowd in the backyard counting down the clock, 3, 2, 1, Bryant for the win.
It sounds like school was mostly a backdrop for sports. But what were some of your favorite activities there?
I actually enjoyed the challenge of school. I was a good student. Beyond the gym, I was really into my English classes and storytelling. I loved the way stories could inspire people. It's funny because that passion for storytelling stayed with me long after I stopped playing.
What was your first job?
Laughs. My first and only job was basketball. I went straight from high school to the NBA at 17. I didn't have the typical summer job at a burger joint. My job was the gym, 6 to 8 hours a day.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
It was when I moved back to Philly. I joined these summer leagues and realized I wasn't the best anymore. I didn't score a single point for an entire summer. Most kids would have quit or felt embarrassed, but it did the opposite for me. It gave me a mission. I realized I was willing to outwork everyone else to close that gap.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Deciding to learn the fundamentals instead of just trying to be flashy. I spent one whole summer doing nothing but shooting form. No games, just mechanics. It felt tedious at the time, but it built the foundation for everything that came after.
What was your biggest break?
Definitely the 1996 draft. Getting traded to the Lakers right away was the dream scenario. To go to the City of Stars and play for an organization with that kind of history, that was the door opening.
What were your biggest struggles before that success?
The transition from Italy to the US was tough. I didn't know the slang, I didn't know the culture, and on the court I was behind physically. I had to fight for respect every single day in those Philly gyms.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Never, not once. To me, quitting wasn't even a word in my vocabulary. If I failed, I just looked at it as a puzzle I hadn't solved yet.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel were essential to your success?
Oh, the routine was everything. The 4 a.m. workouts are famous, but it was about more than just the time. It was the consistency. I wanted to get 2 or 3 workouts in before most people even had their first cup of coffee. That compounding effect over 20 years is what made the difference.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I think I would have been a storyteller or maybe a creative director. I loved the process of building something from scratch, whether it was a play on the court or a book for kids.
What was your life like right before the fame hit?
It was just me, my basketball, and my family at Lower Merion. I was a high school kid taking Brandy to prom and then going to the gym at midnight. It was a simpler time, but even then the focus was already there.
How did relationships change after you became a star?
It gets complicated. You learn who is there for Kobe the Laker and who is there for Kobe. Success can be isolating because your circle gets smaller, but it also becomes stronger. You value the people who knew you before the jersey started selling.
Did fame bring you happiness?
Happiness for me came from the work, not the fame. Fame is a byproduct. The joy was in the process, the sweat, the film sessions, the internal growth. The trophies are great, but the journey to get them is where the real happiness lived.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The lack of privacy and the way people project their own expectations onto you. You become a character in other people's stories, and sometimes that character isn't who you actually are.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
People thought I was cold or selfish because I was so focused. They didn't see that my intensity came from a place of wanting my teammates to be just as successful as I was. I wasn't trying to be mean, I was trying to be better.
What was your darkest moment?
There was a time in the early 2000s when my personal and professional life were under immense scrutiny. It was a period of heavy legal and personal battles that really forced me to look in the mirror and decide who I wanted to be as a man, not just a player. That's actually when I created the Black Mamba persona, to separate the man from the player so I could survive that pressure.
What past regrets did you carry that you actually spoke about?
I regretted the way I handled some of my early relationships, especially with teammates like Shaq. We were both young and alpha, and I think if I had been more mature, we could have won even more than we did. I'm glad we were able to patch that up later in life.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
That I was only about basketball. I had a whole world of interests. I loved business, animation, and being a girl dad. My daughters were my world, and being their coach was just as important to me as being an NBA star.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong. How did you handle it?
Tearing my Achilles in 2013. I was at the end of my career, and that's an injury that usually ends it for good. I remember being in the locker room feeling frustrated, but then I just thought, okay, what's next? I went through the surgery, did the rehab, and made sure I came back to finish on my own terms.
Did fame and fortune ultimately change your life?
It changed my circumstances, sure. It gave me a platform to help others and provide for my family, but it didn't change my drive. If I had $0 in the bank, I'd still be the first one in the gym.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My family, for sure. But professionally, it was the legends who came before me, guys like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Bill Russell. I reached out to them constantly. I was like a sponge, trying to soak up every bit of wisdom they had.
What was life like in your final years?
It was beautiful. I was retired, I had won an Oscar for Dear Basketball, and I was running Granity Studios. I was writing books for kids and coaching my daughter Jana's team. I was probably busier than when I was playing, but it was a different kind of fulfillment.
What were you working on right before you passed away?
I was deep into the Wizenard series of books and several other creative projects at Granity. I wanted to create stories that taught kids about the mental side of sports, how to handle fear, anxiety, and pressure through fantasy and storytelling.
When and where did you pass away?
It was January 26, 2020 in Calabasas, California.
What happened that morning?
I was traveling by helicopter with my daughter Gianna and some close friends to a basketball tournament at my Mamba Sports Academy. There was very heavy fog that morning, and unfortunately the helicopter crashed.
It was a day the world will never forget. Let's lighten things up a bit. What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I used to cut my own hair for years. Even when I could afford the best barbers in the world, there was something about the routine of doing it myself that I found relaxing.
I can't picture that. What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
There was a rumor that I didn't actually speak Italian and was just faking it for the cameras. Trust me, if you put me in a room with a bowl of pasta and an Italian grandmother, the truth comes out pretty quick.
What was your most unique habit?
I would ice my knees in a pool of ice water while I watched film for hours. I'd be shivering, but I wouldn't move until I had finished analyzing every play from the night before.
What was your favorite food?
Definitely Mexican food. Give me some good carne asada and I'm a happy man.
Did you have a favorite restaurant?
El Camino Real in Orange County. It was a modest spot, but the food was authentic and the people there treated me like family. I also loved Javier's in Newport Beach for something a bit more upscale.
What was your favorite book?
I love The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's all about pursuing your personal legend, and that resonated with me on a very deep level.
Did you have any known rivalries?
Oh, plenty. Shaq was the big one early on, but I had great battles with Allen Iverson, Tracy McGrady, and later on Paul Pierce in the Celtics. Those rivalries were what pushed me to be better. I love the competition.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
When I was a rookie, I used to practice in the dark. I'd show up to the arena before the lights were even on and just shoot by feel. I wanted to know the court so well that I didn't even need to see the rim to know where it was.
What's your funniest behind-the-scenes moment?
Probably some of the stuff on the Olympic teams. Being around guys like LeBron and Carmelo, the banter was non-stop. We were like a bunch of high schoolers on a field trip, just with much bigger shoes.
Did you ever prank someone?
I wasn't the biggest prankster. I was usually the one everyone was afraid to prank, but I'd occasionally hide a teammate's shoes or something small just to keep them on their toes.
What was the most outlandish purchase you made?
I bought a helicopter. People thought it was just a diva move, but it was actually about time. Traffic in LA is no joke, and I wanted to make sure I could get to practice and still be home in time to tuck my kids into bed.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Fall in love with the process. Don't do it for the trophy or the money. Do it because you love the work. If you love the struggle, the success will take care of itself. And remember, the dream is actually the journey, not the destination.
Kobe, this has been an absolute honor. Do you have any closing remarks or stories you'd like to share with the listeners before we sign off?
Just that I'm so grateful for the journey. To everyone listening, find what you love and go after it with everything you've got. Don't let anyone put a ceiling on your dreams. Thank you for keeping the Mamba mentality alive, and thanks for having me, Calvin.
What an incredible conversation. From the courts of Italy to the rafters of Staples Center, Kobe's drive remains unmatched. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.